One of the hardest parts of building language model applications is testing your application. One of the most valuable things that you can do when testing your application is find edge cases that your application fails on, where it doesn't produce a good or desired result. Today, I'm excited to show off a tool that we built to help find those edge cases. It's similar to a specific type of fuzz testing, which is a type of software engineering testing, called metamorphic testing. What we're going to do is we're going to generate pairs of questions that are semantically the same and that should produce similar answers. We're then going to run those pairs of questions through our language model application and see what actually gets generated. We're then going to ask a language model to judge whether those two answers are similar or not. And for ones that aren't similar, those are going to be the edge cases that we're interested in learning about. We can then take those edge cases, put them in a LangSmith dataset, start doing regression testing against those edge cases as we actually try to improve them in our application. So let's take a look at what this looks like. I've got my terminal here, and I'm going to install a new package that I created called LangFuzz. After it's installed, I'm then going to create two things in order to run it. First is a file containing the model that I want to be testing, and the second is a configuration file for LangFuzz. This model file is an example of a model file I might use. I connected it to Chat LangChain, which is an example application I made to do question answering over LangChain docs. In this file, I have this function called callModel, which takes in a string and returns a string. This is the interface that LangFuzz expects. This can be sync or async, but it needs to take in a string and return a string. And it's expected that the input string that it takes in is a question, and the output string is the answer. So I've got my model file. This is part one of setting up LangFuzz. Next, I need to set up a config. There's two required components. First is a description of the chatbot that I want to test. So here I'm going to put chat over LangChain docs. This description is needed so that the LangFuzz system can generate questions that would best test this chatbot. Second is just a path to the model file that I created. These are the only two things that are required. There are other parameters that I can pass if I want to. These parameters include configuration for the models to use. So one model configuration to use for the judging model, and another model configuration to use for the model that will be generating the questions. And then also the prompts. If I really want to, I can control the prompts that are used for judging and question generation. With those two things set up, I can now run LangFuzz. I can do that with the CLI LangFuzz, and then I just need to point it to the config that I created. So config.yaml. I can also pass in other parameters, one of which is the number of data points to generate. So I'm going to pass in n equals 10. I can then run this. We can see that it starts by creating a LangSmith dataset. This is the data set to which I'll store a bunch of the results that are created. I'm not going to store all the results. Rather, this command line interface is an interactive experience through which I can decide which data points I want to add. So let's look at this. This is the first pair of questions that were generated. So question 1, what is LangChain used for? Question 2, can you explain the purpose of LangChain? So these were generated by an LLM that decided that these were pretty similar questions to be asking. I can then compare the results. So here I can see the first one lists a bunch of different types of applications that I can build, while the second one is a bit more broad and says development, productionization, and deployment. The first question's a lot better. This got flagged as a 5 because these answers are actually pretty different. So now I can curate this data set, and what that means is I'm going to decide which of the inputs, if any, I want to add to this data set. So let me go ahead and add both of them. So I'm just going to press enter. That's the default action. If I don't add any other characters and just press enter, then it's going to add both. So I'm going to do that. I now get another example. So here I have two questions. What programming language does LangChain support? Which languages can you use with LangChain? The first answer looks pretty good. The second one, not so much. For this purpose, I'm just going to add only the second one. So I'm going to press 2 and then enter. That adds the second data point. And here we go again. Can you give me an example of a project using LangChain? I'm not sure. What is a practical use case for LangChain? So I'm going to add both of these, so I'm going to press enter again. I can continue doing this, and if at any point I want to quit, I can just press Q and then quit. If I go to LangSmith and look at the most recent dataset that I created, I can see that I have 5 examples. And if I look at these are the same questions that were generated during the command line util. So it's pushing them up to my LangSmith dataset. From here, I can test them like I always do with any of my LangSmith datasets. This is a quick video, but it hopefully shows off how to generate these edge cases for your applications. It's called LangFuzz, and I'd encourage you to give it a try. Pip install LangFuzz. It's still a pretty new project and it's pretty bare bones, but if people like it, we're going to add a lot more to it over the next few months. So let me know if you find it useful, or if there's other types of fuzzing that you think would be helpful for creating these edge cases. Thanks!